What's going on, guys? Xenix back here with another top 5 of that episode of The Flash. So this episode, gonna give you guys a quick recap, and here we go. So from last episode, Barry obviously proposed to Iris, and we only thought that the reason that he did this was because he loved her, but it was actually because Savitar, in the future, whenever he kills Iris, Barry checked her hand and she didn't have a ring. He thought that if he proposed to her and she accepted, that would somehow change the future and would no longer cement that timeline. To give a rundown on Savitar, I'll have to kind of get into detail with the Speed Force. So Savitar only exists in the Speed Force, and whenever Barry threw the stone, which actually exists in the real world, it gave Savitar part of the way out. Luckily, Caitlin saved a chunk of it that prevented Savitar from escaping the Speed Force fully. Furthermore, when he did appear to Barry earlier this season, he was only appearing for brief periods of time because he couldn't fully manifest himself, and that was due to the Speed Force pulling him back. So it was short kind of speed bursts, and he couldn't really control them, but he was always being pulled back into the Speed Force. And when this episode Savitar gets the entire Philosopher's Stone, he then is able to fully manifest himself into the real world and lock Wally up. So I'm going to get into that with my top 5. Starting off at number 5, Wally finally clocks in fast enough to stop Savitar within the time span that Savitar kills Iris in. This is good, but we actually see how Wally is probably not going to be at the Savitar scene when he kills Iris. That is because Wally got taken as a placeholder in the Speed Force for Savitar, while Savitar is going to exist in the real world. So they did like a switcheroo, and there's no way out for Wally as of now. Number 4. Last episode, we saw Wally was running to Big Belly Burger. Then Savitar appeared. Now, in this episode, we actually see him training with the team, and Savitar appears again. So this is really bad for Wally, because the third time when he sees Savitar, him and Barry are going to a local fire, and Wally just out of nowhere gets punched and starts getting beat up by Savitar. So things go from a mental state to physical experiences where Savitar is actually hurting him without Barry being able to actually see what's going on to Wally. He's just getting like thrown across the street and punched, and Barry's like, what's going on? Number 3. The team talks to Savitar 2 times this episode. The first time it was because they kind of wanted to see if they could get any more information from him, and they did. We figure out that HR does not die. This is Earth 19 HR. He will not die in the end, according to Savitar. And Savitar knows the future, so unless Team Flash actually is able to change anything, HR will live. We also figure out that the Philosopher's Stone was, as they thought in the episode, it wasn't thrown into the Speed Force, but Iris didn't get it completely right. She thought that whenever Barry threw it into the Speed Force, it was actually the stone and him both got knocked in the future, but the stone did get thrown into the Speed Force, and that actually cemented the fact that Savitar was going to get out of the Speed Force into the real world. Number 2. For Savitar's prophecy, it seems like the one who will betray is Caitlin. This is because in this episode, she finally comes out with the fact that she took a little piece of the Philosopher's Stone in hopes that it would somehow give her the ability to remove her powers, her metahuman powers. Number 1. When Barry created Flashpoint, he allowed Savitar to get an idea of how to get himself out of the Speed Force. That is, give Wally, who is Kid Flash in the Flashpoint timeline, powers in this timeline, and then they can do a switch without Wally actually knowing. Savitar would be the one setting the trap, and Wally would be the one who's somehow falling into that trap without actually knowing. So Wally was all along, in Savitar's plan, just going to be a pawn and changed to actually give Savitar a way out. Wally is the one who will suffer a fate worse than death, and that fate is what Savitar says is the Speed Force. It gives you no hope at all, and the only thing that Savitar was able to cling on to was his will to kill Barry, because according to Savitar, Barry is the big bad. So we actually learned a lot this episode, and it's actually going to be quite interesting to figure out how they can get Wally out of the Speed Force, if they can, and if what they've done up to now was exactly what Savitar had hoped and had planned. So that's a lot of stuff that's in the air. We'll have to figure out next episode. I'm pretty sure Barry's going to the Speed Force, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
There is no light on the other side. I say, look straight ahead and you will see. You will see.